Hi, welcome to Talk Tuesday. I'm Susan Buchser-Lochocki, running for President of the United States with the Green Party, and this is my Matter studio, and it's Tuesday, and it's Talk Tuesday. So today I want to get back to women's issues and talk to you a bit about that. So let me just adjust the camera here a little bit. There we go. And take a quick sip of water. So, women's issues. I guess, being a woman in our Western world right now is kind of difficult because it's very pro-be like man and forget your womanhood and pretend like it doesn't exist. And I'm actually against that because being a woman is pretty darn special. We have really amazing features to us that make us very special. We can produce babies, we can produce food, we can do lots of things. So, where to begin? I guess I'll start with the fact that I know some of you already know this, but I was raped at the age of 9, and it was something that I have decided to block out. So, I've done that with several things throughout my life because I've had different issues in my life, and it just works for me that way. So, I will say I don't think I got pregnant because I was not menstruating from it, and so luckily at least that was not something that I had to go through as well as being raped. But it took me a long time, and I didn't know who to turn to because, I was 9, and being Catholic, you're... supposed to be a virgin, and I was not. I didn't know what happened, but I somehow knew I wasn't a virgin anymore. So I couldn't turn to my family because I would have gotten in trouble. So I had to just deal with it on my own, and I did. Sorry. I wasn't expecting that. Sometimes I cry and sometimes I don't. Sorry. And normally I don't talk about it, so normally I don't have these feelings. But anyways, let me move on. So anyways, it's really hard when that happens. You feel really strange and abnormal and you don't fit in anymore anywhere, especially if you're in a religion that holds that to be sacred, to be a virgin. So, I guess my downfall started, or maybe it was an upfall, I don't know. But as time passed and I moved away from the rape, I realized that it wasn't my fault and that it was okay. And I also realized that, Christianity wasn't the religion that it all makes itself out to be. And somewhere along the line, I discovered, a lot of things about authority that were not, how can I say it, making sense. I guess that's the best thing. There were constant conflicting visions of things going on in the United States and around the world, and just all sorts of things. And as we're finding out now, too, with the police brutality and the court cases that aren't being done properly, and people are being released from prison who have been there for like 30 years because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and nobody believed them that they were innocent. So, there's a lot of problems with the authority figures in the world right now, and especially in the United States. It was like that when I was younger, and it is still this way now. But anyways, so there I was, growing up, and I was about 17, and it was really frustrating to me to know that, I had been raped, and I wanted to know what normal sex was like, because I was curious. And so I did. I met a nice guy, and whatever. I think I felt like I was in love, although now, I think I was too young to know what love was. But anyways, we had normal sex a couple of times, and I don't know. I don't think I got pregnant from it. I do recall maybe once or twice having like a late period. So maybe I miscarried. I don't know. I think a lot of people miscarry, a lot of women miscarry, and they don't realize it because they just think their period's late, but it's actually a miscarriage. Or sometimes your period's a bit heavier than other times, So anyway, personally, I don't think that I ever really got pregnant. But once we got more serious, then I do recall, I think, going to Planned Parenthood and getting on some sort of birth control of some sort. I think I went on the pill for a while, and then shortly thereafter I found out that he was having sex with somebody else. So then I dumped him. But during that time, I just want to talk a little bit more about religion and how it plays a role on women, at least the religion I was raised with, which is Christianity and Catholicism. In more specifically, is I remember when I was, in my teens, going to church on Sunday, and it would be, a hot summer day, and we weren't supposed to eat before we went to church. We were allowed to drink some water, but even at that, it shouldn't be too much. So I remember often going from all the different positions in church that you have to do, from standing to sitting and kneeling to standing and all this stuff. I realized, or I didn't realize, I would faint sometimes, because I probably had low iron, but it was going undiagnosed by the gynecologist for whatever reason. But anyways, I would faint sometimes. And for me, I guess if I was very religious, I would have seen that as a sign, like, I was impure because I had been raped and I was no longer a virgin. But luckily, I was beyond that, and I knew that the fact that I was raped did not make me a bad person. The fact that I was no longer a virgin did not make me a bad person. So I knew that the fainting spells I was having in church had nothing to do with God striking me in any way, shape, or form. But like I said, I believe some people out there who are very God believers might see that as something that God was doing. Anyway, I'm going to say that throughout my life, I've probably had about 15 miscarriages, because if your period is late by 2 weeks or a month or so, there's a very real chance it's a miscarriage, especially if you normally have your period and you're having intercourse, sex, whatever, with a, whether it's a boyfriend or a husband or something, and it happens. And it happens a lot. And I don't think I'm unusual there. I think I'm perfectly normal. Now, for me, most of my relationships were with one man at a time, and they were, somewhat longer ones, which I would then get on to birth control, and so that, there would be no pregnancies unless I wanted them. But even with my husband here, we had several miscarriages. And it's just, you try and it happens, and you try and it happens, and it's part of trying to start a family or trying to be a family. It's miscarriages do occur. It's not a straight road to making babies and then, having a happy home. It takes time. So one miscarriage I did have was after Jessie was born, and we had just built the house and moved in. And I think it was November, December. I went home to visit my family. I don't know why. I think somebody was having it might have been a special anniversary or a special birthday. Jessie was no, she wasn't 3 yet. She was going to be turning 3. We had just moved in October, and I left and went off to the States, if I remember correctly. And I stopped in Boston first to visit some friends. I had a girlfriend who had been living in Berlin and Frankfurt here from my high school days, and she had met a nice German guy and was living there, and but they were moving back to the States, so I decided to visit her while she was in Boston, because I had never really been to Boston. I'd flown in and then was driven out, but that's about it. And then another friend of mine came up from New Jersey and joined us there. And during this sort of girls' weekend, I'm not sure when it happened, but and I should probably backtrack. So I was far enough along in the pregnancy where we wanted to check if there were any birth defects, because, as you know from my previous videos and stuff, that we had a child before Jessie. His name was Kai, and he had a severe heart defect. So we were trying to do as many checks as we could to make sure that the pregnancy that was going forward was okay. And so just before I flew out, I went for an operation to have a test done to see if there were any birth defects and if everything was okay. And then I landed, I think, in the U.S., and I was there, like I said, in Boston for a couple of days, and then I went off to Rochester. And when we were getting the test done, I questioned whether it was safe to do the test before taking a flight. And the doctors assured me that, yes, it's okay, absolutely. Nothing's gonna happen, everything's gonna be fine. So then I landed, and I was hanging out with my girlfriends, and my one friend who is now living in Boston, she wanted to show me something, and I think we took a subway, like a metro, I guess, somewhere. And when we got out at our stop, I think the escalator was broken. Now, I had Jessie in a stroller, and I can't remember her situation. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was a class reunion that we were there for. I don't know. Anyway, so long story short, there was an elevator, but it was far away, and she was, I'm going to say, a little impatient, if I remember correctly. And so the idea was to walk up this long flight of stairs. It was at least a double or a triple flight of stairs. I mean, just straight up. And I was looking at Jessie, and I knew I had been fatigued from jet lag. And I was thinking, isn't there another way? And she's like, no. So then we did the stairs. And I don't know if she was helping me or if I was doing it by myself, but I just recall, I'm anyways bad at stairs, but halfway up the stairs, I fell on top of the stroller. And, I thought, oh, I hope it was a sort of a bad fall on top of the strollers. We were walking up the stairs, not down, and I just fell on top of it. But I was thinking, oh, I hope that this is okay. I hope that I didn't do anything, to the baby that was inside of me. And then I made a mental note to just keep track of anything else that might happen. And then if something strange happens that I feel, that I should, contact a doctor. So anyways, we continued up the stairs and did whatever we were going to do. Yeah, and I must admit, I don't recall my visit, like sightseeing around Boston all that much, so I'm not sure what she showed me. I don't mean to insult Boston. I'm sure Boston is a great city, but during that visit, I don't know. It just, maybe the stairs just annoyed me. I'm not sure. But anyway, long story short is, I enjoyed my time with my girlfriends. And then after that, I went off to my parents' home and spent I think it was a class reunion. And I spent some time there. And then I was there and nothing was going on. Nothing changed with me, so everything seemed fine. And then I came back to Switzerland, and still everything was fine. And then suddenly, I think it was between Christmas and New Year's, and I think if I remember the dates correctly, I think it was around that time, when suddenly I started bleeding. And I went in to the doctor, and, I don't know. His English wasn't that great, and I don't know what I was really understanding, but anyways, I miscarried. I don't know if it was because I fell or if it's because of something else, but I was at least, I think, 2.5, 3 months along, and yeah, that was a hard one. That one, because I had been attached to the child already, in thinking. I was already planning who was going to be the godmother, and I even made the announcement to the person and everything, and to my family, and so things were moving along. And then that happened, so that was a tough one. And after that, Chris and I, we really, we started to think that maybe, baby making was it wasn't working. And then just about 4 months later is when Jessie was diagnosed with leukemia. And then that really sort of became something that then really stopped the whole concept. Part of that is because a lot of the chemicals that they use in treating leukemia can cause birth defects. And since we already knew about birth defects from our first child, the idea of getting pregnant and then having, a child with birth defects again was not what we were looking for. So long story short, when Jessie actually, some months later then got leukemia, that's when we realized, okay, this is really, not working for us. So let's just be thankful for what we have. We have Jessie, and let's try to make her well. And so that's what happened. Yeah. So that's the end of this first part. I guess it's mostly about miscarriages, because I would diagnose that last one as a miscarriage. It wasn't anywhere far enough along to survive on its own or anything like that. So anyway, yeah. All right. So I knew that I would make several of these, and since we're almost at 20 minutes now, I'm going to stop here and pick up on abortions next. All right. Thanks for listening. Part 2 is coming. Bye.